The shadow of a forgotten crime. In a small, unremarkable town, there lay a case that had baffled investigators for decades. The disappearance of young Emily Hart had remained a mystery since she vanished one summer evening in 1978. Despite exhaustive searches and countless interviews, the case went cold, and Emily's name faded into obscurity. It wasn't until 2020, when a new detective named Sarah Green was assigned to the cold case unit, that Emily's story began to resurface. Sarah, driven by an uncanny sense of determination, re-examined every piece of evidence and interviewed every witness once more. One day, while poring over old case files in the dimly lit archives, she found a peculiar detail. A single photograph of Emily's backyard, taken shortly before her disappearance. The photo was ordinary, except for a shadowy figure in the background. Intrigued and unsettled, Sarah delved deeper. She discovered that the figure seemed to match a description given by a witness who had reported seeing someone lurking near Emily's home. But no arrests had been made, and the case had been closed with no leads. Determined to uncover the truth, Sarah traced the shadowy figure to an old, abandoned house on the outskirts of town. The house had been vacant for years, its windows boarded up, its walls covered in grime. Sarah, armed with a flashlight and a sense of unease, ventured inside. The air was thick with dust, and the silence was almost deafening. She methodically searched the house, each creak of the floorboards echoing in the emptiness. In the basement, Sarah found something that made her blood run cold, an old, rusted trunk hidden beneath a pile of rotting wood. With trembling hands, she opened it and found a collection of disturbing items. Personal belongings of several missing persons, including a locket with Emily Hart's initials. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. The trunk was a macabre trophy case of a predator who had been active for decades. As Sarah left the house, she noticed something out of the corner of her eye. The shadowy figure from the photograph seemed to be watching her from a distance, a dark shape lurking in the fading light. Her heart raced as she quickened her pace, the figure following her every step. She could feel the weight of the unseen presence pressing down on her. Back at the precinct, Sarah pieced together the evidence and realized she had uncovered the work of a serial killer who had evaded capture for years. The trunk had been a grim confession, a twisted monument to a life of crime. With this new evidence, the case was reopened and the hunt for the killer intensified. Though the investigation led to the eventual capture of the suspect, Sarah would never forget the shadow that seemed to follow her. It was as if the ghost of the forgotten crime had reached out from the darkness, reminding her of the horrors buried within the cold cases that still haunt the world. The Phantom Witness. In the remote town of Ravenwood, the unsolved murder of Lydia Moore had cast a long shadow over the community since 1985. Lydia, a beloved local teacher, had been found dead in her home, but her killer had never been identified. Despite numerous leads and a painstaking investigation, the case went cold. In 2023, Detective Michael Carter, a seasoned investigator known for his relentless pursuit of justice, was assigned to the case. His new approach involved re-interviewing old witnesses and examining the evidence with fresh eyes. During his investigation, he stumbled upon a previously overlooked detail. A witness who had claimed to see a suspicious figure near Lydia's home on the night of the murder. This witness had since disappeared without a trace. Determined to find out more, Michael visited the witness's last known address, a dilapidated house on the outskirts of town. The place was abandoned, but as he explored, he discovered a hidden journal in the attic. The journal belonged to the missing witness and detailed their fears about someone stalking them. The entries were filled with cryptic warnings about the phantom who could be anywhere and nowhere at once. As Michael read through the journal, he began to feel an eerie presence. Shadows seemed to move out of the corner of his eye, and the temperature in the attic dropped suddenly. The journal mentioned a meeting with a mysterious figure who had made ominous threats about Lydia's case. The last entry ended abruptly with the words, "They're here." Puzzled and increasingly unsettled, Michael followed a trail of clues from the journal to an old, abandoned warehouse. As he approached, he felt the oppressive weight of something unseen, as though he were being watched. Inside, he found disturbing evidence. Photographs of Lydia and other victims, along with a set of meticulously kept notes on their lives and deaths. Suddenly, Michael heard a faint whisper behind him. Spinning around, he saw nothing but darkness. His flashlight flickered, and the temperature plummeted. As he hurriedly collected the evidence, he noticed a shadowy figure in the corner of the room. It seemed to be watching him, but every time he looked directly at it, it vanished. The figure was an eerie manifestation of the fear and darkness surrounding the case. Michael left the warehouse with the evidence, feeling a profound sense of dread. He later learned that the phantom witness had been found dead in an abandoned building, an apparent victim of foul play. The new evidence led to a breakthrough in the case, eventually uncovering the identity of Lydia's killer. The chilling experience left Michael with an unsettling sense of the supernatural, as if the unresolved cases had a life of their own, manifesting through shadows and whispers. The case was solved, but the ghostly presence that haunted him would linger in his mind, a reminder of the shadows that sometimes lurk in the depths of cold cases. The echoes of Elmwood Cemetery. Elmwood Cemetery was a quiet, somber place known for its serene beauty and the numerous unsolved cases tied to it. In 1992, the discovery of a young woman's body in a grave that had been recently disturbed shocked the small town. The victim, identified as Sarah Collins, had been buried only a few weeks before, and her death was ruled suspicious but unsolved. Years passed, and the case grew colder. It wasn't until 2024 that Detective Laura Bennett, known for her intuitive approach to cold cases, took on the challenge. She began by revisiting the crime scene, a place that had long been avoided due to its unsettling reputation. As Laura walked through the cemetery, she noticed something peculiar, a set of fresh footprints leading away from Sarah's grave. Intrigued and unnerved, Laura investigated further. The cemetery caretaker mentioned that the grave had been disturbed several times over the years, always in the dead of night. Rumors circulated about the cemetery being haunted, but Laura dismissed them as superstitious chatter. She focused on the evidence, which included a series of cryptic notes left near Sarah's grave. One night, Laura decided to stay at the cemetery, hoping to catch the culprit in the act. As the moon cast an eerie glow over the tombstones, she set up surveillance equipment and waited. Hours passed in silence until she heard a faint rustling. The temperature dropped and a cold wind swept through the cemetery, causing the old trees to creak ominously. Suddenly, Laura saw a shadowy figure moving among the graves. She approached cautiously, but the figure seemed to dissolve into the darkness whenever she got close. The sensation of being watched grew stronger, and Laura's flashlight flickered. As she neared Sarah's grave, she found a new note. A chilling message that read, "The dead speak, but no one listens." Determined to uncover the truth, Laura analyzed the notes and discovered a pattern that pointed to a long-standing local grudge. The case led her to a local historian, who revealed that Sarah had been a key witness in a scandal involving influential figures in the town. Her death was not random, but a deliberate attempt to silence her. With the new evidence, Laura managed to uncover the identities of those responsible for Sarah's death and bring them to justice. The resolution of the case was bittersweet, as the haunting presence of the cemetery had left an indelible mark on her. The echoes of Elmwood Cemetery, with its restless spirits and unresolved mysteries, had finally been laid to rest, but the chilling experience lingered in Laura's memory as a testament to the shadows that cold cases often leave behind. The Midnight Call. In the small, secluded town of Eldridge, the disappearance of Emily Winters in 2001 had left a trail of confusion and heartbreak. Emily, a high school senior with a promising future, vanished one night without a trace. Despite numerous searches and investigations, no leads emerged, and the case went cold. In 2024, Detective Jake Robinson, a veteran of many high-profile cases, was assigned to revisit the Winters case. Jake's approach was meticulous and methodical, focusing on re-examining old evidence and interviewing anyone who might have known Emily. During his review, he came across a strange detail. Emily had received a series of mysterious phone calls in the weeks leading up to her disappearance, but the records had been inexplicably erased from the phone company's archives. Determined to find answers, Jake reached out to the old phone company employees who had worked on the case. One of them, a retired technician named Harold, revealed something unsettling. He mentioned that during the investigation, there had been reports of a ghostly phone call, a call that was traced to nowhere, but had a chilling message: "I'm watching you." Intrigued and unnerved, Jake delved deeper into the phone records and discovered that Harold had been telling the truth. The call had been reported as a technical anomaly, but Jake couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to it. He decided to investigate the phone company's old office, a now abandoned building on the outskirts of town. At the derelict office, Jake felt an oppressive sense of foreboding. The building was in disrepair, with flickering lights and creaking floors. As he explored, he found old equipment and dusty files related to Emily's case. Suddenly, Jake received an anonymous call on his cell phone. The voice on the other end was distorted but unmistakably familiar, an echo of the voice from the mysterious call. The caller's voice taunted Jake, recounting details about Emily's life that only someone intimately involved with the case would know. The call ended abruptly with a chilling warning: "You're too close." Jake pressed on, driven by a sense of urgency. He tracked down the origin of the call to a former employee who had been fired under suspicious circumstances. The investigation revealed that this individual had been obsessed with Emily, and his behavior had led to her abduction. With the new evidence, Jake was able to solve the case and bring closure to Emily's family. The resolution was a mix of relief and unease, as the haunting phone call had been a sinister reminder of the dark forces that sometimes lurk behind cold cases. Jake could never forget the eerie midnight call, a spectral echo of the past that had guided him to the truth. The vanishing of the Red Lantern. In the sleepy town of Millfield, the disappearance of Mary Thompson in 1969 was a case that haunted the local community. Mary, a young woman known for her vibrant personality, vanished without a trace one stormy night. Her car was found abandoned at a local park, and despite extensive searches and numerous tips, the case went cold. Decades later, in 2023, Detective Rebecca Allen, known for her tenacity in solving cold cases, decided to revisit Mary's disappearance. She pored over old case files and interviewed former witnesses. One detail stood out: a local legend about a mysterious red lantern that was said to appear in the park on the night of Mary's disappearance. The lantern was rumored to be a harbinger of something sinister, but no one had taken the legend seriously at the time. Intrigued, Rebecca decided to investigate the park, especially during stormy nights when the legend said the lantern would appear. One night, she set up a stakeout at the park, armed with a camera and a sense of foreboding. The storm raged on, the wind howling through the trees, and the park was eerily quiet. As the night progressed, Rebecca noticed a faint glow in the distance. She strained her eyes and saw what looked like a red lantern swinging from a tree. Her heart raced as she approached cautiously. The lantern flickered, casting an unsettling red light that seemed to dance in the darkness. Rebecca followed the light to an old, overgrown section of the park. The lantern led her to a hidden clearing, where she found an old, rusted box partially buried in the ground. With trembling hands, she opened the box and discovered a collection of personal items, photographs, letters, and a diary belonging to Mary Thompson. The diary revealed Mary's growing fear of someone stalking her, and the last entry detailed a meeting arranged at the park on the night she disappeared. The final words were a desperate plea for help. The discovery was both chilling and illuminating, pointing to a potential suspect who had been overlooked in the original investigation. Rebecca identified and interviewed the suspect, who was now elderly and living in seclusion. Under pressure, the suspect confessed to having lured Mary to the park under false pretenses and then silencing her when she discovered the truth about his crimes. With the new evidence, Rebecca was able to solve the case and bring justice for Mary. The mysterious red lantern, once thought to be mere legend, had guided her to the truth. The case's resolution was bittersweet, as the eerie glow of the lantern and the dark history of the park had left an indelible mark on Rebecca's psyche. The Whispering Walls. In the quiet, rural town of Greywood, the unsolved murder of Helen Carter in 1993 had cast a long shadow. Helen, a well-respected local historian, was found dead in her home, but the case quickly went cold due to a lack of leads and evidence. In 2024, Detective Emily Morris, known for her expertise in solving difficult cases, was assigned to revisit Helen's murder. Emily began by examining Helen's old home, which had been abandoned since her death. The house was an old Victorian with a reputation for being haunted, a fact that the locals often mentioned in hushed tones. As Emily explored the house, She noticed that the walls seemed to have a peculiar quality. The old plaster had a series of scratches and symbols that appeared to be etched into the surface. Intrigued, Emily took detailed photographs and made notes of the unusual markings. She also found old letters and documents related to Helen's research on local legends and folklore. One evening, Emily returned to the house to conduct a more thorough investigation. The house was shrouded in darkness, save for the flickering light of her flashlight. As she examined the walls closely, she heard a faint whispering sound, almost as if the house itself were trying to communicate. The whispers grew louder, and Emily could make out fragmented phrases like hidden truth and behind the walls. Driven by a sense of urgency, Emily started to investigate the walls more thoroughly. She discovered a hidden compartment behind one of the panels. Inside, she found a collection of old letters and a diary belonging to Helen, detailing her research into a secret society that had operated in Greywood during the early 20th century. The diary revealed that Helen had uncovered damaging information about the society, which was involved in a series of criminal activities, including murder. Helen had been working to expose the group, and her death was likely a result of her discoveries. The whispers in the house were not just eerie phenomena. They were clues pointing towards the truth. Emily followed the trail left by Helen's research and uncovered a web of deceit and corruption tied to some of the town's most prominent figures. With this new evidence, she was able to solve Helen's murder and bring those responsible to justice. The case's resolution was a significant victory, but the experience left Emily with a lingering sense of unease. The whispering walls of Helen's house had revealed a dark and hidden truth, reminding Emily of the unsettling connections between the past and the present and the shadows that sometimes lurk behind cold cases. The Phantom Diary. In the bustling city of Crestwood, the mysterious death of journalist Laura Bennett in 2005 had left authorities perplexed. Laura had been investigating a series of high-profile corruption cases when she was found dead in her apartment. The case went cold after no suspects emerged and the evidence was minimal. In 2024, Detective Alex Harper, known for his persistence in solving complex cases, was assigned to revisit Laura's murder. He began by combing through Laura's old files and belongings, which had been stored away in an evidence locker. Among the items, Alex discovered an old leather-bound diary with a peculiar design. The diary was filled with Laura's notes and observations about her investigations, but one entry stood out, an unsettling description of a shadowy figure she had seen following her in the days leading up to her death. The entry ended abruptly with a cryptic message, "The shadows know." Intrigued by this message, Alex decided to delve deeper into Laura's final days. He re-interviewed her colleagues and acquaintances, but no one had seen or heard anything unusual. The case seemed as cold as ever until Alex received a mysterious phone call. The caller, who refused to identify themselves, provided a vague tip about a hidden room in Laura's apartment building. Following the tip, Alex returned to Laura's old building, now under new management. He conducted a thorough search of the building and discovered an old, unused storage room that had been sealed off. Inside, he found a collection of old surveillance equipment, including hidden cameras and microphones. It appeared that someone had been watching Laura's every move, but the equipment had been turned off long before her death. The discovery led Alex to a former private investigator who had worked for a prominent politician, one of Laura's primary subjects. The investigator revealed that Laura had uncovered incriminating evidence against the politician and had been targeted to silence her. The shadowy figure mentioned in Laura's diary was likely a hired enforcer sent to intimidate her. With this new evidence, Alex was able to connect the dots and arrest those responsible for Laura's death. The resolution of the case brought justice for Laura, but the eerie sense of being watched lingered. The Phantom Diary had been a chilling reminder of the lengths some would go to protect their secrets and the shadows that sometimes stretch long into the past, waiting to be uncovered. The Cursed Photograph. In the small town of Ravenshire, the case of James Hawkins' disappearance in 1988 remained unsolved. James, a well-liked high school teacher, vanished one evening while walking home from work. Despite numerous searches and leads, the case went cold with no trace of James ever found. In 2024, Detective Olivia Grant, known for her skill in solving the most puzzling cold cases, was tasked with reopening James' case. As Olivia reviewed the old evidence, she came across a peculiar item. A single, unremarkable photograph of a local carnival taken shortly before James disappeared. The photograph showed a crowded scene, but one detail stood out: an eerie figure standing alone in the background, partially obscured. Curious about the figure, Olivia returned to the location where the photograph was taken, now a run-down area with overgrown weeds and abandoned buildings. She interviewed former carnival workers and attendees, but no one recalled seeing anyone unusual or having any knowledge of the figure. Determined to find out more, Olivia traced the origins of the photograph and discovered that it had been taken by a local photographer who had mysteriously disappeared shortly after James did. The photographer's darkroom was still intact, filled with old, undeveloped rolls of film. Olivia developed the remaining film, hoping to find more clues. To her horror, she found a series of disturbing photographs, each featuring the same shadowy figure in various locations around town, including near James' home. It became clear that the figure had been following James. As Olivia continued her investigation, she began to experience unsettling phenomena. She received anonymous phone calls with distorted voices and felt a chilling presence whenever she visited the locations in the photographs. One night, while examining the photographs in her office, Olivia noticed the shadowy figure had appeared in her own surroundings, as if taunting her. The breakthrough came when Olivia tracked down an elderly woman who had worked at the carnival. She revealed that the figure in the photographs was a former carnival worker who had been fired under mysterious circumstances. This individual had a reputation for being involved in dark rituals and had been rumored to curse those who wronged him. Olivia managed to find and interview the man, who confessed to abducting James after being wronged by him. The case was finally solved, but the eerie photograph and the mysterious figure left a lasting impression on Olivia. The cursed photograph had revealed the chilling truth about the man's obsession and the darkness that sometimes lies hidden behind cold cases. The Vanishing Ink. In the quiet town of Harrington, the unsolved disappearance of Emily Johnson in 1999 had perplexed investigators for years. Emily, a local librarian, vanished one evening without a trace. Her car was found abandoned in the parking lot of the library, and despite extensive searches and numerous leads, the case went cold. In 2024, Detective Mark Davis, known for his success in cracking difficult cases, was assigned to Emily's case. He began by reviewing old evidence and interviewing potential witnesses. One item that stood out was Emily's personal journal, which had been found in her home. The journal was filled with her notes and observations, but one entry was peculiar: a detailed description of a strange symbol that Emily had seen around town in the weeks before her disappearance. The symbol, described as an intricate pattern of interconnected lines, was dismissed at the time as a meaningless scribble. However, Mark decided to investigate further. He discovered that the symbol had been seen in several other locations around town, always in places linked to mysterious incidents. Mark's investigation led him to an old, abandoned bookstore that had been a frequent stop for Emily. The bookstore was a maze of dusty shelves and forgotten tomes. As he explored, Mark found a hidden room in the back, covered in strange symbols and ritualistic markings. Among the items in the room was a collection of old books and manuscripts, many of which contained the same symbol Emily had described. One of the books detailed a local occult group that had been active in the area decades earlier. The group was known for its secretive rituals and believed to be involved in several unsolved disappearances over the years. Mark realized that Emily had likely stumbled upon something she shouldn't have and had become a target as a result. As Mark continued his investigation, he began to experience eerie occurrences. Shadows seemed to move on their own, and he heard whispers in the dark corners of the bookstore. The atmosphere was thick with an unsettling energy, as if the secrets of the past were coming to life. The breakthrough came when Mark discovered a hidden compartment in the bookstore containing Emily's belongings, including her phone and a set of photographs. The photographs revealed a pattern of the symbol appearing near various locations connected to the occult group. One photograph showed Emily in the bookstore, her expression one of fear. Mark was able to identify a former member of the occult group who had been living under an alias. The suspect confessed to having abducted Emily after she discovered their activities. With this new evidence, Mark was able to close the case and bring justice for Emily. The case's resolution was both a relief and a source of lingering unease. The vanishing ink of the occult group had left a dark mark on the town and on Mark, reminding him of the shadows that sometimes linger behind cold cases. The echoing footsteps. In the serene town of Maplewood, the disappearance of Lisa Green in 1996 remained one of the most baffling cases. Lisa, a young artist, vanished while walking home from her studio, leaving behind a cryptic painting of a deserted alleyway. Despite extensive searches and numerous interviews, no clues emerged and the case went cold. In 2024, Detective Sarah Mitchell, known for her keen investigative skills, was assigned to reopen Lisa's case. Sarah began by examining the old evidence and revisiting the scene of Lisa's last known sighting. The painting Lisa left behind was a focal point of the investigation, but its meaning had remained unclear. Sarah decided to explore the alleyway depicted in the painting, which was located in a secluded part of town. As she walked through the alley, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being followed. The air was heavy with an eerie silence, broken only by the distant echo of footsteps. Determined to find answers, Sarah set up surveillance in the alley and began reviewing footage from the cameras. One night, while monitoring the footage, she saw something unsettling. Shadowy figures appearing and disappearing, as if someone was deliberately avoiding the cameras. The next day, Sarah discovered an old, abandoned building adjacent to the alley. Inside, she found remnants of what appeared to be a makeshift studio or hideout. The walls were covered with eerie drawings and notes, some of which depicted the same alleyway as Lisa's painting. Among the items was a journal belonging to someone named Tom, who had once been a resident of the building. Tom's journal detailed his obsession with the alleyway and the mysterious occurrences he had witnessed there. The entries described hearing footsteps that seemed to echo from nowhere and seeing shadowy figures lurking in the dark. Tom had been convinced that the alley was haunted or cursed. Sarah traced Tom's whereabouts and discovered that he had mysteriously vanished around the same time as Lisa. Further investigation revealed that Tom had been involved in a local art scene with Lisa and had been fixated on her work. It became clear that Tom's obsession had likely led him to play a sinister role in Lisa's disappearance. The breakthrough came when Sarah uncovered a hidden compartment in Tom's old studio containing photographs and additional evidence linking him to Lisa's case. It was revealed that Tom had abducted Lisa, driven by his delusions and fixation on her art. With the new evidence, Sarah was able to solve Lisa's case and bring justice. The case's resolution was both a triumph and a reminder of the dark forces that can hide behind seemingly ordinary people. The echoing footsteps in the alleyway had led Sarah to the truth, but the eerie atmosphere of the case lingered, a haunting reminder of the shadows that sometimes stretch across cold cases. The haunted carousel. In the quaint town of Willow Creek, the disappearance of 12-year-old Danny Foster in 2003 was a case that left the community in shock. Danny had vanished while playing at a local carnival, and despite extensive searches and interviews, no trace of him was found. The carnival was shut down shortly after his disappearance, and the case went cold. In 2024, Detective Rachel Turner, known for her ability to tackle cold cases, was assigned to Danny's disappearance. She began by reviewing the old case files and interviewing anyone who had been at the carnival that night. One detail that stood out was an old carousel that had been a prominent feature of the carnival. The carousel had been removed and scrapped shortly after Danny's disappearance. Rachel decided to investigate the carousel's history and discovered that it had been built in the 1920s and had a reputation for being haunted. Local legends spoke of strange occurrences and ghostly figures associated with the carousel. Despite the eerie stories, Rachel approached the investigation with a focus on facts and evidence. While researching the carousel's origins, Rachel learned about a former carnival worker named Harold who had been known for his strange behavior. Harold had mysteriously left town shortly after Danny's disappearance. Rachel found Harold's old home, now abandoned, and decided to investigate. Inside the dilapidated house, Rachel found old carnival memorabilia, including a collection of photographs and documents. Among these was a journal belonging to Harold. The journal detailed his obsession with the carousel and included unsettling descriptions of voices and visions he experienced while working there. One entry mentioned a secret compartment in the carousel where Harold had hidden items. Rachel returned to the site where the carousel had been scrapped. With the help of a local historian and a team of investigators, she searched the area and found remnants of the carousel's base, including a hidden compartment. Inside, they discovered personal belongings that belonged to Danny, including a locket and a toy. The discovery led Rachel to a deeper investigation into Harold's background. It was revealed that Harold had a history of mental illness and had been fired from the carnival for inappropriate behavior. He had become fixated on Danny and had abducted him during the carnival. With the new evidence, Rachel was able to close Danny's case and bring justice to his family. The haunting legacy of the carousel and the ghostly stories associated with it had ultimately guided Rachel to the truth. The case's resolution provided a sense of closure, but the eerie atmosphere of the carnival and the haunted carousel remained a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lie behind cold cases. The Coin Room. In the historical town of Ravensfield, the unsolved case of William Carter's disappearance in 1987 had mystified investigators for years. William, a respected architect, vanished without a trace from his office one night. Despite thorough searches and numerous tips, the case went cold and no leads emerged. In 2024, Detective Laura Evans, known for her ability to crack tough cases, was assigned to revisit William's disappearance. She reviewed the old files and decided to investigate William's former office, a grand but aging building with an eerie reputation. The building had been largely abandoned since William's disappearance, with only a few staff members remaining. During her investigation, Laura discovered a peculiar detail: a small, windowless room in the back of the office, which had been locked and untouched for years. The room was known among locals for its strange acoustics, sounds reportedly echoed and distorted in unusual ways. Intrigued, Laura decided to examine the room more closely. When Laura entered the room, she was struck by its peculiar layout. The walls were covered in old architectural blueprints and drawings, many of which were related to William's projects. In one corner, she found a hidden compartment containing a collection of personal notes and a recording device. The device had a series of recorded messages that were dated around the time of William's disappearance. Listening to the recordings, Laura heard a series of cryptic messages and unsettling noises. The recordings included fragmented conversations and eerie whispers, all pointing to a secret project William had been working on. One recording mentioned a hidden truth and voices in the walls, suggesting that William had discovered something alarming. Laura delved into William's projects and discovered that he had been working on a controversial renovation of a historic building that had a dark history. The renovation had been met with resistance from local preservationists who believed the project would destroy an important landmark. As Laura continued her investigation, she uncovered evidence that pointed to a group of individuals who were vehemently opposed to the renovation and had a history of intimidation. The breakthrough came when Laura identified a former employee who had been involved in the preservationist movement. The employee admitted to having confronted William about the renovation and revealed that William had been threatened by those who opposed the project. Fearing for his safety, William had secretly recorded his interactions with the opponents. With this new evidence, Laura was able to solve the case and bring those responsible for William's disappearance to justice. The Coin Room had revealed the chilling truth behind his disappearance, and the cryptic recordings had guided Laura to uncover a hidden conspiracy. The case's resolution brought closure, but the eerie acoustics of the room and the unsettling recordings left an indelible mark on Laura's mind. The Forgotten Music Box. In the coastal town of Harborview, the disappearance of 16-year-old Sophie Reynolds in 2001 had been a long-standing mystery. Sophie, a talented musician, vanished while on her way home from a local music rehearsal. Despite extensive searches and numerous leads, the case went cold, leaving her family and the town in despair. In 2024, Detective Natalie Brooks, renowned for her success in solving cold cases, was assigned to revisit Sophie's disappearance. Natalie started by reviewing old case files and speaking with those who knew Sophie. One significant item was found among Sophie's belongings: a small ornate music box. The music box was intricately designed, but it had remained unopened and was considered a sentimental item rather than a key piece of evidence. Natalie decided to investigate the music box further. She carefully opened it and discovered that it played a hauntingly beautiful melody. The music box also had a hidden compartment containing a letter written in Sophie's handwriting. The letter mentioned a secret meeting with someone she trusted, but it was incomplete and did not specify any names. Intrigued by this clue, Natalie traced Sophie's activities and discovered that she had been involved in a secretive music group that met in a secluded area near the coast. The group was known for its underground performances and had a reputation for being somewhat elusive. Natalie spoke with former members and learned that the group had disbanded shortly after Sophie's disappearance. Natalie's investigation led her to an old, abandoned lighthouse near the coast, which had once been a favorite spot for the music group. Inside the lighthouse, she found remnants of past performances and old recordings. One recording, in particular, stood out, a performance of the same melody played by Sophie's music box. Listening to the recording, Natalie noticed that it included a series of whispered voices and a faint, rhythmic tapping sound that seemed to correspond with the music. The tapping sound became clearer as the melody progressed, suggesting a hidden message. Natalie analyzed the recording and discovered that the tapping formed a pattern, which, when decoded, revealed a set of coordinates. Following the coordinates, Natalie discovered a hidden underground room beneath the lighthouse. Inside, she found a collection of personal items belonging to Sophie, as well as evidence linking several former members of the music group to her disappearance. It became clear that Sophie had discovered something troubling about the group and had been silenced to keep their secret. The breakthrough came when Natalie identified the individuals responsible for Sophie's abduction and learned that they had been involved in illegal activities and had feared exposure. With the new evidence, Natalie was able to solve the case and bring justice for Sophie. The resolution of the case was a significant triumph, but the haunting melody of the music box and the hidden messages it contained left a lasting impression. The forgotten music box had ultimately revealed the dark truth behind Sophie's disappearance, serving as a chilling reminder of how secrets can remain hidden for years. The abandoned mansion. In the isolated town of Ravensmoor, the unsolved case of Emily White's disappearance in 1990 had long haunted the community. Emily, a local high school teacher, vanished without a trace from her home, leaving behind a perplexing set of clues but no clear leads. Her disappearance was the focus of extensive searches, but it eventually went cold. In 2024, Detective Daniel Reed, known for his unyielding determination, was tasked with revisiting Emily's case. As he reviewed the old files, he found a disturbing detail. Emily had been researching the history of an old mansion on the outskirts of town. The mansion had been abandoned for decades and was rumored to be haunted. The mansion had been the site of several unexplained events, but its significance in Emily's case had never been fully explored. Determined to find answers, Daniel visited the mansion, which stood as a crumbling relic of the past. The building's eerie appearance, with its overgrown garden and broken windows, added to the sense of foreboding. Inside, Daniel discovered old documents and photographs that Emily had collected, including a map with strange markings and notes about a hidden room in the mansion. Daniel followed the map's coordinates and located a concealed entrance behind a bookcase in the mansion's library. The hidden room was filled with dusty furniture and old papers. In the center of the room was a large, antique chest. Inside the chest, Daniel found a collection of journals, photographs, and personal items that had belonged to Emily. The journals revealed that Emily had been investigating the mansion's history, uncovering a dark legacy involving the previous owners. The mansion had been the site of occult rituals and strange disappearances dating back to the early 1900s. Emily had documented her findings, including details about a secretive group that was rumored to be involved in sinister activities. Among the documents was a letter from Emily detailing her fears about being watched and her intention to expose the group's activities. It became clear that Emily had been targeted because she was getting too close to uncovering the group's secrets. The letter included the names of several individuals who were linked to the group, many of whom were prominent figures in the community. Daniel's investigation led him to a former member of the group who was living under an alias. The individual admitted to having threatened Emily to keep her quiet and revealed that she had been kidnapped and hidden away to prevent her from exposing their activities. The case was resolved when Daniel located Emily's remains in a secluded part of the mansion's grounds. The resolution of the case brought justice for Emily and closure for her family. The abandoned mansion, with its dark history and the secrets it had concealed, was a chilling reminder of the lengths to which some will go to protect their hidden truths. The case's resolution, while bringing peace, left an eerie sense of unease about the shadows that can linger behind cold cases. The silent reflection. In the small town of Brooksville, the case of Margaret Sinclair's disappearance in 1995 had remained unsolved for nearly 3 decades. Margaret, a well-regarded historian, vanished without a trace from her home. Her disappearance was baffling, and despite extensive investigations, no concrete leads emerged. In 2024, Detective Ryan Ellis, known for his innovative approaches to cold cases, took on Margaret's case. He began by reviewing the old evidence and found a peculiar item among Margaret's belongings, a vintage hand mirror with an ornate frame. The mirror had been noted in the initial investigation as insignificant, but something about it intrigued Ryan. Ryan decided to examine the mirror closely. Upon closer inspection, he noticed a series of strange etchings on the back of the mirror that hadn't been recorded in the original investigation. These etchings seemed to be a mix of symbols and numbers. Ryan had the mirror analyzed, but it yielded no immediate answers. Determined to understand its significance, Ryan delved into Margaret's background. He discovered that she had been researching the local history of Brooksville, focusing on a series of unsolved disappearances that dated back to the early 1900s. Margaret had been investigating a legend involving a cursed mirror that was said to be linked to the town's dark past. Ryan learned that the mirror's origins were connected to a local figure named Edward Blackwood, an enigmatic person from the early 1900s who had been rumored to be involved in occult practices. According to local law, Blackwood had a collection of mirrors that were said to hold the power to reveal hidden truths or trap souls. Ryan's investigation led him to Blackwood's old estate, which had been abandoned for years. Inside, he found a series of old documents and artifacts, including a hidden room filled with mirrors similar to the one found with Margaret. One mirror, in particular, caught Ryan's attention. It was covered in the same symbols as the mirror from Margaret's home. As Ryan examined the mirror, he experienced a chilling sensation and began to notice unusual reflections in its surface. The reflections seemed to show glimpses of scenes from the past, including what appeared to be Margaret in distress. The reflections also revealed hidden messages and clues about Blackwood's activities and his obsession with the mirrors. The breakthrough came when Ryan identified a former resident of Blackwood's estate who had been involved in occult practices. The resident confessed to having a connection to Margaret's disappearance. It was revealed that Margaret had been close to uncovering a dark secret about Blackwood's mirrors, and her disappearance was orchestrated to prevent her from exposing the truth. With the new evidence, Ryan was able to resolve the case and bring justice for Margaret. The cursed mirror had been a chilling link to the dark history of Brooksville, and its reflections had ultimately guided Ryan to uncover the truth. The case's resolution provided closure, but left an eerie reminder of the shadows and secrets that can linger behind cold cases. The shadow in the portrait. In the quiet town of Eldridge, the mysterious disappearance of Charles Thompson in 1988 had long puzzled investigators. Charles, a prominent local artist, vanished one evening after attending a gallery event. His disappearance was especially perplexing given the absence of any signs of struggle or foul play. In 2024, Detective Linda Carter, known for her expertise in solving cold cases, took on Charles's disappearance. During her review of the case, she discovered an old painting Charles had been working on before his disappearance. The painting, a self-portrait, was unusual not only for its striking detail, but also for the dark shadow that seemed to loom ominously in the background. Linda decided to investigate the painting further, hoping it might hold clues to Charles's fate. She had the painting examined by art experts, who noted that the shadow in the background appeared almost like a distorted figure, as if it was intentionally placed there. The experts were puzzled by the painting's eerie quality and the absence of any artist's signature or date. Linda learned that Charles had been working on a series of portraits for an upcoming exhibition, but he had become increasingly withdrawn and secretive. Interviews with friends and colleagues revealed that Charles had spoken of feeling watched and had mentioned a mysterious figure he had encountered in his studio. Intrigued by these details, Linda decided to visit Charles' old studio. The studio was a small, isolated building on the outskirts of town, now abandoned and covered in dust. As Linda explored the studio, she found a hidden room behind a false wall. Inside the room, there were more of Charles's paintings, many of which featured unsettling images and shadowy figures similar to the one in the self-portrait. Among the paintings was a series of sketches depicting a figure that closely resembled the shadow in the self-portrait. Linda discovered notes detailing Charles's obsession with a dark figure that seemed to haunt his work. The notes hinted at a confrontation Charles had with this figure, describing it as a personification of his fears and anxieties. Further investigation led Linda to a former art dealer who had been involved with Charles's exhibitions. The dealer revealed that Charles had been under significant pressure due to a series of controversial deals and disputes within the art community. It was suspected that someone had used this pressure to manipulate or intimidate Charles. Linda's breakthrough came when she identified an individual who had a personal vendetta against Charles. The individual confessed to having orchestrated Charles's disappearance after a confrontation related to a disputed artwork. The case was resolved when Linda found evidence confirming that Charles had been hidden away to silence him. The resolution of the case brought justice for Charles, but the shadow in the portrait remained a haunting reminder of the dark forces that can lurk behind seemingly ordinary events. The painting had been a cryptic guide to uncovering the truth, revealing the unsettling reality that sometimes the darkest secrets are hidden in plain sight. The Ghostly Diary. In the sleepy town of Brookridge, the unsolved case of Helen Morris's disappearance in 1992 had left many questions unanswered. Helen, a well-loved librarian, vanished one night after leaving work. Despite extensive searches and numerous tips, the case went cold, with no leads to explain her mysterious disappearance. In 2024, Detective Emma Davis, known for her tenacity in solving cold cases, was assigned to Helen's case. She started by re-examining old evidence and found a peculiar item among Helen's belongings: a leather-bound diary that Helen had been using in the months before her disappearance. The diary had been overlooked in the original investigation, but something about it caught Emma's attention. Emma carefully read through the diary and found it filled with Helen's daily notes, observations, and personal reflections. However, the entries became increasingly disturbing as they progressed. Helen wrote about strange occurrences in the library, including unexplained noises and shadowy figures that seemed to appear and disappear. The final entries hinted at a looming threat and a growing sense of paranoia. One entry mentioned a particular book that Helen had discovered in the library's archives, a book with a mysterious past and a reputation for bringing misfortune to those who read it. Helen had made a note to investigate the book further, but had never completed her inquiry. Emma decided to track down the book mentioned in Helen's diary. She found it in the library's archives, an old, dusty volume bound in dark leather with no title on the spine. The book's pages were filled with eerie illustrations and cryptic writings that seemed to detail supernatural events and cursed objects. Emma noticed that the book's content mirrored some of the disturbing entries in Helen's diary. Further investigation revealed that the book had been part of a collection donated to the library by a local historian who had disappeared under mysterious circumstances many years earlier. Emma learned that the historian had been involved in studying occult practices and had been rumored to have possessed other cursed items. Emma's breakthrough came when she discovered that Helen had been investigating the book's origins and its connection to several disappearances in the town's history. Helen had uncovered evidence suggesting that the book was part of a larger, sinister pattern involving a secretive group with a fascination for occult artifacts. Emma identified members of the group who were still active in the town. After extensive questioning, one member confessed to having been involved in Helen's disappearance. It was revealed that Helen had been close to exposing the group's activities and had been silenced to prevent her from revealing their secrets. The resolution of Helen's case brought justice and closure to her family. The ghostly diary had been a key to unlocking the truth, revealing a dark undercurrent to the town's history and the dangerous secrets that had been hidden for years. The case's resolution was a chilling reminder of the shadows that can lie behind cold cases and the supernatural elements that can sometimes play a role in their mysteries. The Vanishing Light. In the remote village of Glenwood, The disappearance of Thomas Avery in 1998 had become one of the town's greatest mysteries. Thomas, a respected local lighthouse keeper, vanished without a trace one stormy night. His sudden disappearance was baffling, especially since the lighthouse was crucial for maritime safety and there were no signs of a struggle or foul play. In 2024, Detective Michelle Lawson, renowned for her success in cracking cold cases, was assigned to revisit Thomas's disappearance. She began by examining the old evidence and found an intriguing detail: a journal Thomas had kept. The journal, found in his abandoned home, was filled with entries about strange occurrences at the lighthouse, including unexplained lights and eerie phenomena. The journal mentioned that Thomas had been seeing a mysterious light on the horizon, which seemed to appear and vanish at random. The light had become a source of distress for Thomas, who believed it was connected to the strange incidents occurring at the lighthouse. In his final entries, Thomas wrote about feeling watched and being increasingly unnerved by the light. Michelle decided to investigate the lighthouse, which had been left untouched since Thomas's disappearance. As she explored the old structure, she found that it had a hidden compartment beneath the floorboards of the keeper's quarters. Inside, she discovered a collection of old photographs and maps, along with a set of detailed drawings depicting the lighthouse and its surroundings. One of the photographs stood out, an image of a shadowy figure standing near the lighthouse at night. Michelle also found a map with markings indicating a hidden location on the island where the lighthouse was situated. The map and drawing suggested that Thomas had been searching for something or someone on the island. Michelle followed the map's coordinates and discovered a concealed cave system on the island. Inside the cave, she found remnants of old campfires and personal items that belonged to Thomas. Among these was a cryptic note written by Thomas, which described a hidden chamber and a secret light that was connected to his fears. Further investigation revealed that Thomas had been involved in a secretive group that used the lighthouse for covert meetings. The group was rumored to be involved in illegal activities and had a history of intimidation and disappearances. Thomas had been documenting their activities and had become a target when he got too close to exposing their secrets. Michelle identified former members of the group who had been involved in Thomas's disappearance. They admitted to having silenced Thomas to prevent him from revealing their operations. The case was resolved when Michelle found evidence confirming Thomas's fate and his efforts to uncover the truth. The resolution of Thomas's case provided closure, but left an unsettling reminder of the dangers that can lurk behind seemingly ordinary places. The mysterious light and the hidden chamber had been key to uncovering the dark truth behind his disappearance, revealing a chilling side to the village's history. The Forgotten Chapel. In the small town of Elderton, the disappearance of Father Michael O'Brien in 2003 had become one of the town's most enduring mysteries. Father Michael, a beloved parish priest, vanished one night after a late service. Despite extensive searches and numerous inquiries, no clues were found and the case went cold. In 2024, Detective Sarah Mitchell, known for her skill in solving difficult cases, was assigned to revisit Father Michael's disappearance. Reviewing the old case files, Sarah discovered a peculiar detail. Father Michael had been involved in restoring a forgotten chapel on the outskirts of town. The chapel, abandoned for decades, was an important part of the town's history, but had been largely ignored in the investigation. Sarah decided to investigate the chapel, which was overgrown with ivy and in a state of disrepair. Inside, she found remnants of Father Michael's restoration efforts, including old documents and sketches related to the chapel's history. Among these was a detailed map of the chapel's hidden sections and a series of notes about strange occurrences during the restoration process. The notes described unusual noises and sightings, including shadowy figures and mysterious symbols that seemed to appear on the chapel walls. Father Michael had been documenting these events in an effort to understand their significance. His final notes hinted at discovering something hidden beneath the chapel and a growing sense of unease about what he had found. Intrigued by these findings, Sarah focused on the map and began exploring the chapel's hidden sections. She discovered a concealed passage leading to an underground crypt. Inside the crypt, she found old relics and artifacts, along with cryptic inscriptions on the walls. The inscriptions seemed to tell a story of a secret society that had once operated in the town and used the chapel for their clandestine meetings. Sarah's investigation led her to uncover records of the secret society, which had been involved in dark rituals and had a history of silencing those who threatened to expose their activities. The crypt revealed evidence that the society had been active up until the time of Father Michael's disappearance. Sarah identified several former members of the secret society who were still living in the area. They confessed to having been involved in Father Michael's disappearance, revealing that he had stumbled upon their secret activities and had been silenced to prevent him from revealing their operations. The case was resolved when Sarah found evidence confirming the society's involvement in Father Michael's disappearance and located his remains. The resolution of the case provided closure, but left an eerie sense of the dark secrets that had been hidden beneath the town's seemingly peaceful facade. The forgotten chapel and its hidden crypt had played a crucial role in uncovering the truth behind Father Michael's disappearance, revealing a chilling side to the town's history and the dangers that can lurk in the shadows. The abandoned mansion. In the isolated town of Ravensmoor, the unsolved case of Emily White's disappearance in 1990 had long haunted the community. Emily, a local high school teacher, vanished without a trace from her home, leaving behind a perplexing set of clues but no clear leads. Her disappearance was the focus of extensive searches, but it eventually went cold. In 2024, Detective Daniel Reed, known for his unyielding determination, was tasked with revisiting Emily's case. As he reviewed the old files, he found a disturbing detail. Emily had been researching the history of an old mansion on the outskirts of town. The mansion had been abandoned for decades and was rumored to be haunted. The mansion had been the site of several unexplained events, but its significance in Emily's case had never been fully explored. Determined to find answers, Daniel visited the mansion, which stood as a crumbling relic of the past. The building's eerie appearance, with its overgrown garden and broken windows, added to the sense of foreboding. Inside, Daniel discovered old documents and photographs that Emily had collected, including a map with strange markings and notes about a hidden room in the mansion. Daniel followed the map's coordinates and located a concealed entrance behind a bookcase in the mansion's library. The hidden room was filled with dusty furniture and old papers. In the center of the room was a large, antique chest. Inside the chest, Daniel found a collection of journals, photographs, and personal items that had belonged to Emily. The journals revealed that Emily had been investigating the mansion's history, uncovering a dark legacy involving the previous owners. The mansion had been the site of occult rituals and strange disappearances dating back to the early 1900s. Emily had documented her findings, including details about a secretive group that was rumored to be involved in sinister activities. Among the documents was a letter from Emily detailing her fears about being watched and her intention to expose the group's activities. It became clear that Emily had been targeted because she was getting too close to uncovering the group's secrets. The letter included the names of several individuals who were linked to the group, many of whom were prominent figures in the community. Daniel's investigation led him to a former member of the group who was living under an alias. The individual admitted to having threatened Emily to keep her quiet and revealed that she had been kidnapped and hidden away to prevent her from exposing their activities. The case was resolved when Daniel located Emily's remains in a secluded part of the mansion's grounds. The resolution of the case brought justice for Emily and closure for her family. The abandoned mansion, with its dark history and the secrets it had concealed, was a chilling reminder of the lengths to which some will go to protect their hidden truths. The case's resolution, while bringing peace, left an eerie sense of unease about the shadows that can linger behind cold cases. 31. The disappearance of Amy Bechtel, 1997. Amy Bechtel was a 24-year-old woman from Lander, Wyoming, who vanished on July 24, 1997, while out for a run in the Shoshone National Forest. An accomplished athlete and aspiring Olympic runner, Amy had moved to Lander with her husband, Steve Bechtel, to pursue their shared passion for outdoor activities like rock climbing, hiking, and running. On the day of her disappearance, Amy had spent the morning running errands around town. She then planned to scout a course for an upcoming 10K race she was organizing. Her last confirmed sighting was at a local photo store around 2:30 p.m. After that, she headed toward the Loop Road, a scenic byway in the Shoshone National Forest, intending to run the course she was mapping out. When Emmy didn't return home by the evening, Steve became worried and contacted friends and local authorities. A massive search effort was launched, involving law enforcement, volunteers, and search and rescue teams, but no trace of Emmy was found. Her car was discovered parked along the loop road, with her keys and other belongings inside, but there were no signs of a struggle or clues to indicate what had happened. Over the years, several theories have emerged regarding Amy's disappearance. Some believe she may have been abducted by a stranger while running, while others suggest she might have had an accident or fallen victim to a wild animal in the rugged wilderness. Suspicion also briefly fell on Steve Bechtel, her husband, due to inconsistencies in his statements, but he was never charged, and he has always maintained his innocence. Despite extensive searches, including efforts by the FBI, no significant leads or evidence have surfaced. The case remains open, and Amy Bechtel's disappearance continues to haunt the Lander community and the outdoor sports world. Her story has been featured in numerous true crime shows, but the mystery of what happened to this young and promising athlete remains unsolved. 32. The disappearance of Stephen Kocher, 2009. Stephen Kocher was a 30-year-old man from St. George, Utah, who vanished on December 13, 2009, in the Las Vegas suburb of Henderson, Nevada. The circumstances of his disappearance are strange and perplexing, leaving investigators and his family searching for answers that have yet to be found. Stephen was last seen on surveillance footage parking his car in a quiet residential neighborhood in Henderson. The footage shows him calmly exiting his car, walking away, and then disappearing from view. His car was left locked and parked on a street, with his personal belongings inside, including his cell phone, iPod, and some Christmas presents. However, there was no sign of Stephen himself. The investigation revealed that Stephen had no apparent reason to be in Henderson. He had recently moved to St. George, Utah, after losing his job as a journalist and was struggling to find steady work. Despite this, he had not shown any signs of depression or plans to leave his life behind. In the weeks leading up to his disappearance, Stephen had made several trips to nearby towns, but the purpose of these trips remains unclear. His family and friends have described him as a kind, responsible, and deeply religious person, making his sudden disappearance all the more baffling. Extensive searches of the area where Stephen was last seen yielded no clues. Investigators have considered various theories, including the possibility that Stephen met with foul play, suffered from a mental health crisis, or chose to disappear voluntarily. However, none of these theories have been confirmed, and there is no evidence to suggest what might have happened to him. Stephen Kocher's disappearance remains one of the most puzzling missing persons cases in Nevada. His family continues to hope for answers, but as the years pass, the mystery only deepens. The image of Stephen calmly walking away from his car, never to be seen again, is a haunting reminder of how quickly and inexplicably someone can vanish.